Okay, I'm going to use this video to discuss painting with gouache and the struggle. This is a 30-minute painting session fast. This assignment is for my students as an alternative so they could practice using gouache. Step 1, make sure you block out all of the shapes, all of the forms that you are looking at in front of you. As you can see, I'm sketching out some of the forms that we have in the class. In your first step, you're really seeing the relationships and you're working quick. Notice that I am not using a ruler, but I'm just focusing on basic shadows, basic hatching, getting an idea of where the light is. When you are drawing the cloth, just break the cloth down into simple shapes. Know that you're going to be painting over all of this, so you may not want to go super in detail. Once you go ahead and you do a basic drawing, don't spend much time. You're going to get a lot of white and a little bit of black. You have your water. Okay? Make sure you're painting with your value scale. Make sure you're using a lot of white and just a dot of black. Do not start painting with black. Now, one thing that I recommend if you're doing this as an alternative assignment is to paint the background, kind of like a mid-tone. And you can see I'm using one of my bigger brushes and I am blocking in basic shapes in the background. So then I can go ahead and work on having those highlights be on my forms. As I'm doing the background, I'm also experimenting with using gouache. I'm using a lot of water. I'm using the edge of the flat brush in order to get up to those edges of the forms. But I'm really blocking in all sorts of details. Now I am taking some watery gouache, testing it with my value, mixing more of a number 3. And you can see I pause and I compare it to my value scale. So I'm working with mid-tones. I'm starting with the middle. Now that's more of a number 2/number 3. I'm adding in values like number 2 on top of my number 3, number 3 on top of my 4, in order to show those different range. If you have too much water ever, you can use it as a paper towel. Now I'm going in with some pure white, right? Some white. And I'm blocking in where the forms are the lightest. And I want you to think very carefully about the sequencing of how you want to paint the colors, right? You want to make sure that you cover all of the white. Now I'm taking a darker number 3. It's actually more of a number 6, and I should have compared it to my value. And I'm taking the round detailed brush, the pointy brush, and I'm working in more of those shadows. I'm finding space where it's the darkest. I'm using black sparingly, right? I don't want to overuse it because that will overpower the composition. Okay, I'm coming in with some more number 5, and I am going and I'm working in those shadows. So the form shapes have shadows in them. Even though they're completely white, you'll see darker values. But for the most part, I want my form shapes to be lighter. Now notice how I move around the painting when I have a color, right? So I'm gonna look, I'm gonna like, where are my number 5s? And I'm gonna go everywhere. Where are my number 5s? And I'm gonna use all of that color while it's in my palette. Okay, I'm going in with more of a number 6. Please take note of how I'm working with my black and my white, and I'm remixing colors. But I kind of have all sorts of different colors that I'm working with using. Now I'm bringing in more white and I'm spreading it out, adding more white. Okay, that's pure white, so that's my 0 or 1. And I'm moving that everywhere. I'm working very quick so I can mix. Now I compared, I got some number 7, and I'm smoothing things out. I'm simplifying some of my shading. So I went over some of my hatching and my curves and my shading. And I'm working with a bigger brush. I want you to pay attention to the fact that I have one brush for light value and one brush for dark value. So I'm working with multiple brushes at the same time. So as we go into our critique tomorrow, I want you to reflect about, what do I need to learn more about gouache? How can I get better with gouache? How can I get better with charcoal, right? Do I need to go back and practice shading techniques? stippling, cross-hatching, and I want you to show that in your PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going in, I'm adding in lighter value, and I'm cleaning up the boundary. One thing I'm seeing is we got messy boundaries, right? Where there are gaps in between the different values. You want to make sure you put two different colors right up next to each other. So I'm going ahead and I'm cleaning up all of those gaps. I'm simplifying and I'm adding as I look at the picture. Okay, so we're coming close to the end of this quick demo. Again, this is like a painting sketch. This is a learning exercise. I'm working with the value scale. I'm putting in some number 3s to try to make that sphere look round. So I've gotten the question, how do you blend with gouache? You don't need to blend so much in this exercise if you're using different values, right? And you're constantly going in. If you have a 3 and a 1 and a 4 next to each other, that should show a slow transition of value. But really break it down into shapes. Now I made the decision to bring down my background to more of a number 9. I don't really know how I feel about this decision. Okay, there I'm adding hatching with white, trying to make the cylinder look round. But I'm not really sure how I feel about some of my last minute decisions with painting. So I would love you to drop a comment below and give me suggestions about how I can clean up this painting as I model the experience. Okay, my students, I want you to pause and think what did I just learn? What did I just learn about using different values, checking with my value scale? Should I start with black or should I start with midtones? What are some strategies that you just got? How do I use water? How does water help move it around the page? Should I have 2 different brushes? What should I use the thin brush for versus the fat? So I really want you to think critically and throw Post-its up on our Nearpod about what you're learning. Okay, please write feedback for me. Let me know my next steps for my painting and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye now.